Chapter 18. The agent said to Arona, "No, nothing new on possible survivors of the explosion in Lima. There are some rumors floating around about a cult taking over a ranch in New Chile. We're checking it out. Other than that, nothing." He shrugged. Arona merely nodded. In this case, no news was bad news. Massey checked his timers for the 15th time. Soon. Very soon. The last squirt update said they were within a light year of their destination, practically there, as fast as the new gravity drives could move the ships. Getting close. Getting ready. Wilkes had given Billy a couple of make-work chores, checking systems, cargo manifests, like that. When he arrived at the midship comp terminal kiosk, he expected to see her there. He didn't expect to see somebody with her. Somebody like Bueller, with his hand possessively on the girl's shoulder, kneading the muscle gently. "Bueller," Wilkes said, "you have business in here?" The Marine jerked his hand away from Billy's shoulder. Billy turned. "Wilkes, Mitch was only—" He cut her off. "Yeah, I can see what Mitch was only doing. Take a hike, Bueller." "Damn it, Wilkes," Billy said. "Who the hell do you think you are?" "Me? I'm the guy who pulled you out of the chemical fog you were living in, just before they were ready to strain your brain and throw your mind out." Billy flushed, stared at him. She owed him. She knew that, and he knew she was holding her comment because of it. "I thought I told you to take a hike." Bueller smoldered. He was on the edge of swinging at him. Wilkes could feel the rage like heat from a furnace. He hoped Bueller's sense of duty was stronger than his anger. If he let go, Wilkes wouldn't be able to take him. Bueller was younger, faster, stronger, better trained. He would have to shoot him, and Wilkes wasn't sure that would stop him in time, given the tightness of the quarters. But Bueller stalked out, not saying anything. Billy rounded on him. "All right, Wilkes. I owe you, but that doesn't give you the right to tell me who I can talk to." "I saw you," Wilkes said. "You were doing more than talking." Billy's eyes went wide. "Are you jealous? Damn, Wilkes." "Not jealous, kid. Just trying to save you grief." "I'll handle my own grief, thank you. I'm not a child, and you aren't my father." With that, she turned and marched out. Wilkes stared at her as she left. He shook his head. Maybe he was too burned out. Maybe she just liked having somebody pay attention to her. Maybe he should tell her the rest of it. No. Maybe none of them were going to ever get home. Even if Billy did, the white coats would be waiting for her. Maybe she should enjoy whatever free time she had left. Lot of maybes there. So, no, he wouldn't tell her. He'd tried to warn her. That was the best he could do. Like she said, she'd have to handle her own grief. One way or another, grief was coming. That was for damn sure. They dragged a cushion into the forward storage compartment, between two rows of hex cartons that effectively formed corridors in the room. It was dim, quiet, and nobody was going to happen across them accidentally. There was a door alarm rigged to chime if anybody even stuck their head into the room. They sat facing each other on the cushion, and Billy rubbed her hand against the hard muscle in Mitch's arm, feeling the smoothness of it. His strength appealed to her. It made her feel safe. "I'm sorry about Wilkes," she said. "He was out of line." "Maybe not," Mitch said. "Maybe I don't know what I'm doing here." "I know," Billy said. She reached up with both hands and caught his face. It was smooth, his beard depilated so close that his skin felt softer than her own. She urged him to her, kissed him, slipped her tongue into his mouth. The heat of his passion flared, and he circled his arms around her. She could feel the power of him even though he held her loosely. The kiss grew more intense. Billy felt her heart speed up, her breathing turn ragged. He slipped one hand under her shirt, cupped her breast. "Oh, yes." Eagerly, she tugged his coverall tabs open, the critch of the crow separating loud in the quiet room. Felt his hairless chest, the thick muscles bunched under her touch, slid her hand down, and found a different kind of hardness. He moaned, a soft, wordless sound of desire. He slid his mouth down her neck, pulled wide the tabs on her shirt and pants, moved farther down, kissing his way over her breast and belly and beyond. "Oh, yes," she said. She could hardly breathe. After another moment, she didn't worry about breathing anymore. Afterward, Billy and Mitch lay in a tangle of arms and legs. She was sweaty and her pulse had slowed some, but she wasn't tired. Just fulfilled. There had been others. Even in a hospital, they couldn't watch you all the time, and Billy had been with a male patient once, and another time an orderly. And there had been a couple of women, too. But nothing like this. It had never felt so good, seemed so right, been so joyous as this linking with Mitch. Mitch said, "I've never done this before." She smiled. "Really? Could have fooled me. You were terrific." "Was I?" "Well, not that I have all that many guys to compare you to myself, but yeah, you were." He laughed softly. "Good. I wanted to be, for you. Well, I love you, Billy." Billy drank it in. The feeling. The touching. What he said. Yes. She'd been waiting her whole life for this. Had never expected it to happen. Never really believed such a thing was possible for somebody like her. But here it was. "I'm glad. I love you too, Mitch." He shifted slightly, and she felt his renewed interest poking at her. My, potent, aren't we?" He bit at his lip. "There's something I need to tell you," he said. "Showing is better than telling," she said. "Why don't you show me how this works instead?" She touched him lightly with one hand. "We can talk later." "Okay, I take your point." "No, sweetie, I'll take yours." Jones was taking her turn at the proximity sensor board. 10 minutes into her tour, a bogey began blipping at her. "Well, shit," Jones said. She wasn't deep in this kind of work, but since the computer did most of it, all she had to do was ask. "What do we have here, folks?" The computer ran a crawl across the hologram. Jones shook her head. "Can't be, pal. There ain't supposed to be another ship out here." "Problem?" came a voice from behind her. Colonel Stevens stood there. Jones said, "Sir, the PS says there's a vessel out there only 100 clicks back in closing. The thing must have blown a circuit or something, right?" "Could be an echo. That happens," Stevens said. "Run a diagnostic." "Affirmative, sir." Jones touched a button. The image gridded, words sprayed across it, and the result came up almost immediately. "Diagnostic check complete. All systems functional." "Damn," Jones said. "Excuse me, sir. There is a ship out there. I'll sound general alert." She reached for the red button cover, started to flip it up so she could reach the alarm control. "No," Stevens said. "Sir, if that's a ship, we have to assume it's hostile to our mission. That's SOP." By now, Jones had turned enough to see that Stevens had drawn his sidearm, an issue soft slug pistol. "Sir!" He shot her, through the left eye. Gore spattered on his coverall as Jones's head snapped back and smashed into the sensor board. She slid from the chair, dead before she reached the deck. "Sorry," Stevens said, reholstering his weapon. The colonel waved his hand over the comm unit. "Stevens here," he said. "We are go for mating." "Copy that," came Massey's voice from the comm. "We are on the way." Wilkes was in the rec room, working out on the Mioflex full range of motion gear when the ship shook. He didn't know what, but something had hit them. Damn. Anything smaller than an asteroid should have been deflected by the shields. Wilkes jumped from the machine and grabbed his clothes. There was a general alert button near the door. Wilkes broke the cover and slapped it with one hand, hardly slowing as he ran. Billy was putting her shirt back on over tender breasts when the vibration rocked her hard enough to knock her from her feet. She hit one of the hex cartons and bounced off, managed to land on her butt without doing any damage. Mitch absorbed the rocking with his legs and stayed up. A klaxon began screaming, "Ree-aw! Ree-aw!" over and over. "That's General Alert," Mitch said, tabbing his coverall shut. "It's a drill, right?" Billy said, getting up. "Maybe," he said, "but I don't think so. Something hit us. Maybe it was an engine going out. No, we'd all be atomic dust. That happened. I can't believe they'd run a drill this close to the destination. Something is wrong. He started for the exit, then stopped. Listen, Billy, stay here, okay? Until I see what it is. Wait a minute, please. This is a pressurized area. If there are leaks anywhere, you'll be okay here. Please, I'll be back as soon as I can. Billy nodded. Okay. Listen, Mitch. Be careful. I will. I love you. I love you too. He grinned, then turned and sprinted away. Ramirez came out of the shower wrapped in a towel as Bueller ran past. What the fuck is going on? Got me, Bueller said. We've got to get to the armory and load up. Our stations are next to the APC. We're supposed to be locked and loaded in a GA. I know. Ramirez grabbed a coverall hanging on the door and tried to run and put it on at the same time. He didn't manage either very well. Jones is on watch, right? Bueller said, glancing at his chronometer. Got me, man. Mbutu stepped into the corridor ahead of them and started toward the armory. You seen Wilkes? Bueller yelled at her. Nah, ain't seen anybody. I was sleeping, she hollered back at him. They reached the armory. Chen had armorer duty and had already lifted the clear steel covers. He started handing out weapons. Half of 2nd Squad was there, most of 3rd. Bueller didn't see any of 4th or anybody else from his own 1st. Shit! Somebody from 3rd Squad. What? This piece is missing the feed ramp, asshole! Chen looked at the carbine he was about to hand to another trooper. Sa! So is this one! Weapons check, Marines! It only took a few seconds. All of the carbines were missing the feed ramps. Electronic feed ramps were critical. Without them, the only way anybody was going to do any damage with one of these pieces would be to whack somebody over the head with it. Oh shit, Chen said. We got a big problem. What about the grenades? Somebody asked. Buy a brain, stupid, Chen said. You want to set off a fucking grenade on a starship? Somebody else waved a handgun. These are rascaled too. Somebody don't want us to be shooting nothing. Bueller said, You got hands and feet, Marines. You've been trained to use them. Get moving. The intercom came to life. This is Colonel Stevens. All Marines report to the aft loading bay immediately. I repeat, I want all Marines to report to the aft loading bay immediately. Wilkes still had his unregistered civilian stunner, and he had it in hand when he heard boots clattering through the lock. Company coming, and not anybody he was expecting. He lit the target laser. The first few through the hatch were his. He took a deep breath, lined the laser's dot up on the hatch at eye level, and waited. Put your weapon down, came a voice from behind him. Try to turn around, and you're dead. Stevens. Wilkes said, Sir, we're being boarded. I know all about it. Drop the stunner. Whatever this was all about, Stevens had him cold. He'd never get around in time. Wilkes dropped the weapon. The hatch slid up and assault-suited men sprinted through the opening, splitting into 2 groups, one heading fore, the other aft. 2 of them brought their hardware to bear on Wilkes. These were automatic shotguns that fired frangible epoxy boron lead pellets. They didn't have much penetration, but against an unarmored human target, they were deadly enough. They didn't call them splatter guns for nothing. Wilkes raised his hands. The last man sauntered into the ship proper, an antique 10mm recoilless Smith DA-only pistol in one hand. He waved the gun at Wilkes. Hello, Marine. New in town? Right on schedule, Massey, Stevens said. Of course. I've got him. You can put your piece away. Wilkes felt his guts twist. Stevens was a traitor. He didn't know who this Massey was or who he represented. One of the war cartels, maybe some corporation, but Stevens had sold them out. Wilkes turned. You killed easily, didn't you? Stevens was holstering his sidearm. It was necessary. Bastard. Life is hard, Wilkes. A man has to do things to get by. The one called Massey grinned. Glad to hear you say that, Colonel. He pointed his gun at Stevens. Move to the side there, would you, Sergeant? Stevens blinked, his mouth gaping in shock. What are you doing? A man who would sell out his command can hardly be trusted, wouldn't you agree? Wait a second. We had a deal. You need me. The deal is off, and I don't need you anymore. He fired the pistol. The gun made a loud whump in the corridor. Wilkes's ears rang with the noise. Stevens grew a crater in his chest. As he fell, the crater turned bright red. Arterial blood from the shattered heart. Wilkes knew. Dead meat. Wilkes looked at Massey. "Ah, don't worry, Sergeant. I'm not going to kill you unless you do something foolish. You and your Marines will be useful. You know anything about, fishing?" Wilkes stared at him as if he had turned into a giant lizard. Massey laughed. "If you want to catch a fish, you have to have the right kind of bait." Massey laughed louder, as if at a private joke, but Wilkes understood exactly what the man meant, because Wilkes knew exactly what the aliens ate.